right here, what you're seeing in the B-roll footage, is an individual that has 100% completely fallen from what he once was. I have not spoken about this person, but I did at one point in time watch his earlier content, right around 2018, 19, going into 2020. But then something happened, and it was the whole George Floyd riot situation that turned the amazing Lucas into the amazing liberal, then turned him into the amazing leftist. And then, of course, there was also a couple of other things out there that happened, including this little battle that he had with the officer Brandon Tatum. Of course, all the other black conservative content creators out there that he has gone after. And, of course, he's only gotten worse and worse since. So please tell me why it is that I am not surprised that someone like this took the line of, the stabber in this incident was probably standing his ground, when clearly this right here was a case where, let's just say that the use of force here was a little bit unnecessary.
In the self-defense context. Now, the question here is simple. Was Carmelo Anthony justified in employing deadly physical force in this situation? And was it reasonable for him to believe that deadly physical force was being applied against him?
That's not how we're trained. And this is a partly due to post-traumatic slave syndrome, a book that I recommend you all read. But yeah, that's not going to happen. But there has to be a certain level of privilege, like I said, post-traumatic slave master syndrome, that would somehow trigger in your brain to see, well, what is he going to do? What are you going to do to me?
Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. This right here is what leftism does to a person's brain. It makes them soulless, heartless, whiny, selfish, bitter, all that type of stuff there. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that most black people are not on board with helping Mr. Anthony out. I just figured I'd point that out before we close this video down. And of course, if you watch the full video, it basically goes on like this. Out of the roughly 12 minutes of the video, it's mostly white people bad for roughly 8 minutes of it before he actually talks about same said case. But I will talk about Lucas a little bit later on this video. I want to come back to Mr. Anthony and come back to the previous few two videos that I did on this topic, because there was one thing I had not talked about, and that was the fact that Mr. Anthony was getting donations from a crowd that believes he's just an innocent little baby and that he didn't do anything wrong. We'll talk about that, and of course we'll also talk about the fact that there is something very, very heavily that's going to be weighing against him, but we'll get to that here in a second. Now guys, really quick, I did not get a video out on Tuesday. I apologize for that there. I meant to have a video out on what I think was actually going on, kind of a follow-up to what was going on at the Daily Wire, but I want to kind of sit back and wait just a little while longer, because I'm kind of waiting for one more thing to drop before I actually put that video out. It was just something that kept popped up last night. I was like, this would actually be pretty daggone useful for the content for the video that might add additional context to what I was talking about. So I wasn't able to get one out on Tuesday. However, I am going to have two videos out tomorrow. I'm recording the first video, this one right here, of course, being on Tuesday night. And of course, the second video I'll probably record sometime tomorrow to release tomorrow evening. And of course, it looks like we're going to be following back up on Stephen A. Smith on Thursday. Much longer take. So make sure you guys stick around for that. Now, guys, before we fully dive into this, as always, please make sure you're already subscribed. If you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to support the channel for free. Make sure the notifications bells are on. You guys can follow me on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the description box to the YouTube channel's Facebook page. Make sure you guys also hit like on the Facebook post itself for the algorithm. One more thing, too, you guys can also follow me on X, also known as Twitter. I still call it Twitter most of the time. It's what I've always called it, but still, you guys can follow me there. And, of course, if you guys can, please hit that thumbs up button. Please hit that like button, so that way this video will have a much larger opportunity at reaching a much larger audience. And let us go ahead and get into this. So, the other day, we had an incident in Texas, Frisco, Texas, a track meet. A young boy by the name of Austin Metcalf was killed. Now, the nature of what happened, we talked about in the previous two videos, and of course, the situation that happened is that a boy by the name of Carmelo Anthony, who happens to be black, was sitting in the wrong tent, and he was asked to leave. So they walked up to him, asked him to leave. An incident occurred, and of course, book bag got grabbed, and Mr. Anthony's response to all this was to stab Mr. Metcalf in the chest, killing him. Let me replay the news clipping from the other day, roughly a minute and 20 seconds, but here you guys go.
And said, quote, touch me and see what happens. The documents say a short time later, Metcalf grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Later telling an officer at the scene, I'm not alleged, I did it. He put his hands on me, I told him not to. Anthony's bond was set at $1 million. Legal expert Philip Linder weighing in.
If there is no evidence of the young man who died having a deadly weapon or threatening to do serious harm to this kid, then he has no business using a knife. And so there will be no self-defense claim that he could really urge.
Metcalf's father tells us his son's twin, Hunter, witnessed what happened that day and tried to save his brother's life.
I need my son back, but that's not possible. All I can ask for is just pray.
Arrest documents show more than 30 students and coaches are also listed as witnesses to the violent death.
Touch my bag and see what happens. There's over 30 witnesses that saw what happened. Now, guys, really quick, in that last video, and by the way, there's going to be a lot of clips in this video, just giving you a heads up. In that last video, there were a couple of reactions. Actually, there were 3 reactions in that video to this situation come from the more pro-Anthony crowd. One particular reaction I wanted to respond to, but I wanted to wait until now to actually do so. So I hung on to that particular reaction, roughly a minute and 7 seconds. I'm going to play it for you guys, and I'm going to tell you why it is that this particular thing that she's talking about is not going to make one lick of, how do I say, it's not going to really matter worth a hill of shit once it gets inside of a courtroom, and I'll explain why here in a second, but let me roll it.
Why is there no video footage of the incident that happened down in Frisco, Texas? Well, remember the young man who I shared his post earlier where he said that Carmelo Anthony was a victim and was being bullied by the 2 twin white boys, right? Well, he actually has been responding to comments on that post that he made of people who were being racist, saying that it didn't matter. He still brought a knife. Well, this is what he says. Allegedly, there is a video. He says those kids were bullies. They attacked one person, outnumbered him. What was he supposed to do? Oh, but I forgot. It's only self-defense when it's convenient for you. It's called stand your ground. He said, there is a video. You'll see it in court. Just wait. Stop letting race-baiting headlines cloud the truth. This isn't about color. It's about right and wrong. These kids were bullies. They attacked and outnumbered him, which is really interesting because now we know, wow, there is video footage. And he's standing 10 toes down that this video footage is going to exonerate.
A tape. Video. Well, 30 people saw the incident. So I'm guessing that people probably pulled out their cell phone and recorded the altercation. Now, before I tell you what happens, I did tell you guys there would be other clips that don't include the amazing Lucas, who we'll talk about here in a second. Some of those clips, of course, include from Nate the lawyer. Video channel will be linked in the description box. Sean Fitzgerald, actual justice warrior, because he was able to come across one that I thought was very interesting, and he made a very, very good point about it. I'll be playing both of them. Of course, I'll be playing Nate the lawyer first, and then I'll be playing Sean Fitzgerald second. I'm going to play them back to back, and then I'll tell you why it is that this woman, what she just said, is probably going to get invalidated very, very quickly. Let's go ahead and cut to Nate the lawyer first. Let me go ahead and play this.
Against someone else. The requirement is that you have a reasonable belief that they're going to use deadly physical force against you. Since this is Texas, here's Texas Penal Code Section 9.32, deadly force in defense of person. Now, I'm not going to read the whole statute, but this statute lays out the requirements for somebody employing deadly physical force in a self-defense scenario. This is Texas law understanding that concept of proportionality. You can use deadly physical force against someone only if you reasonably think that they're using deadly physical force against you. Now, who makes that determination of what's reasonable or not? That's the jury. So now you have understanding of the law and you have an understanding of the facts.
And the question of stand your ground, of course, is going to lie in the hands of the jury. The jury in Collin County, Texas, Frisco, they're probably going to look at this situation and they're probably going to say, well, he wasn't approached by somebody with a gun. He didn't hit him. He just simply grabbed his book bag. They asked him to leave. He was in the wrong spot. they're probably going to say, it wasn't necessary for him to pull out a knife and stab in the chest. And then also, if you guys remember the previous news clipping, he said that it was self-defense, even though he said that he was the perpetrator, he was the guy who actually did it. And not to mention, there's also 30 of the people who were witnesses to it. Now, I want to say this really quick. In the state of Texas, they had this clause in their stand your ground, or they had this clause in witnesses or incidents, which of course means if you witness a crime, or if there's multiple people who witness the crime and you're the one who did the crime, you go to the front of the line. Meaning you go to the front of the line to get tried, you go to the front of the line to go to prison, and possibly you are at the front of the line to be executed. Texas, they basically built an expressway for executing people who are guilty of murder, which is exactly what this right appears to be. And also, to go on top of this, it looks like they're going to be trying him as an adult. Seriously, you typically tend not to have $1 million bond on somebody if they're not considered dangerous. Some people might think it's excessive, but as I said in the previous video, I think for this case where all options should be on the table. But I gave my reasoning for that then. I may touch back on it now, here in a second. But I told you, I think all options should be on the table. There's probably other reasons why there's a massive, bond on him, And I think that actually gets explained perfectly by Sean Fitzgerald, who, by the way, was not exactly explaining what I just said, but basically mentions the fact that, this kid right here actually had a history of being violent. But let me let this whole thing play all the way through.
So these people are not deterred. They want to give a bunch of money to Carmelo Anthony, and the reason why is some of them believe in the misinformation that this is an innocent Beba Angel black kid that is being railroaded by an evil white racist system, but a lot of them just like the idea of a white kid who had his whole future ahead of him being killed by Carmelo Anthony, a black kid who has a history of violence.
While here at Centennial, students shocked about what happened, that one of their classmates could be charged with such a serious offense. One girl that we spoke with knew Anthony pretty well, that she says, and told us this.
I'm in shock because it's like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I only know him fighting and stuff but to take someone's life is just a different level.
They think it's funny, they think it's hilarious, they think it's some kind of racial revenge against the whites, a la the O.J. Simpson jury that quite literally knew he was guilty of murder and voted not guilty anyway for revenge against Rodney King.
Do you think that they're members of the jury that voted to acquit O.J. because of Rodney King?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Real quick, editing Paul here, and I want to go ahead and say this really quick. There was actually a lot more from Sean's video, which, by the way, this was the third video he did on this topic, that, quite frankly, makes this situation a lot worse, especially on the end of Carmelo Anthony, especially given the fact that the boy's family has responded, and they actually find a way to incriminate him even further. Basically, this situation right here, when you boil it down, actually looks like first-degree premeditated murder. I did say before that all options were on the table, and they are going to try him as an adult. And you're probably going to hear me say this a little bit later on in the video, but Texas kind of has this clause where if multiple witnesses see an incident, you're going down, and not only are you going down, you're going to the front of the line, and possibly not only the front of the line to go to prison, but possibly the front of the line to face capital punishment. I just figure I would say that before we go any further. Like I said, video, everything linked in the description box. I've been looking for that clip, of the girl explaining why it is that she was surprised that Mr. Anthony went as far as he did. But at the same time, she also kind of gave it away that he had a history of getting into fights, which also indicates that he probably had a history of starting fights. Now, whether those fights were with white kids or black kids, I don't really and truly know. But more, of course, is going to come out as a result of this. But still, though, at the same time, though, I got to agree with him. Obviously, there are people out there who are going to look for some type of race vengeance like they did in the case of O.J. Simpson, who, by the way, was clearly guilty. Which finally brings me to the amazing Lucas, who back in 2020 decided to feel a certain way, and he's obviously felt a certain way since. There are people out there who call him the amazing leftist, the amazing liberal. I mean, I don't want to get in trouble for defaming somebody, but still at the same time, though, I also want to stay within the guidelines of YouTube. I mean, I can't really tell you the terminology that I use for Lucas. I'll just say that the word starts with an I and it ends with a T. That right there is what I'll just say right there. I'll just put it out there like that. To all you racists out there who thought I was going to say something different, but still at the same time, though, you guys can piss off. Back to Lucas. So, Lucas opened up his video with this bit about white people, a certain segment of white people wanting to be the victim. Let me play this for you.
There are a group of white people who want to be a victim. That's correct. They want to be seen as a victim, even though throughout the entire history of this country, that has never been the case. All right. And they will go out of their way to be this victim. And they will offload all their problems on groups of people, whether it's the Jews or their favorite,
this
the
right
blacks.
Here is stupid for so many reasons in the world, but I want to focus in on the victim part because, it really sucks if you get your job due to DEI because then you're always known as a DEI hire. I want to say this really quick. When you're on the left and you shift towards the right, you suddenly begin to get measures of common sense back, certain bits of brain power, pieces of brain that, quite frankly, probably were not, unlocked before. I mean, look at Anna Kasparov. She's come a long way. She's still very much on the left, but since she left the absolute radical leftists, she's gotten a little bit better. She's actually having conversations with conservatives, stuff like that there. But when you're on the right or you're center right and you start to shift further and further and further to your left, you actually lose your brains. That's all I'm going to say right now, but let's just go ahead and talk about why it sucks to be a victim. You have to be, how do I say it? You have to be a low IQ to believe that people actually want to be victims. You see, when you're a victim, it sucks. Let me explain why it sucks, okay? Let's say somebody runs up to you, runs up behind you, and they beat the literal shit out of you, and they break both of your legs, they break your arm, whatever. Guess what? You may be the victim, but being the victim sucks, okay? You're already embarrassed, you're kind of emasculated, but it also sucks for other reasons. Like, for example, if you break your legs, you break your arms or whatnot, you got to go through a healing process. It's going to take a while before you get any form of retribution. If somebody steals $1 million from you, it's not like the cops can reimburse that money to you. If somebody steals your wallet, it's not like they can reimburse everything to you. Your credit cards, all that stuff. I mean, look, what I'm saying is, right, being a victim absolutely sucks. Unless, of course, you're of a certain skin tone, which we'll talk about here in a second. But, of course, there is more. The point is, being the victim in a situation absolutely 100% sucks. I mean, there's only one group of people out there who can get away with being a victim, and that's because the media is on their side. But we shall get to that here soon.
What happens? The kid, the high IQ, this is what they want to say, according to the racists, the high IQ, pattern recognizer, per capita elitist, what does he do? He goes and touches the kid again. And sure enough, this is the ultimate, from what it seems, the FAFO. F around and found out. And he found out. And now he's no longer with us. And for some reason, I'm supposed to feel bad about this. And just so we're clear, if the races were reversed, I'd say the same thing. But at the same time, I don't know a lot of black kids that if someone else were to reach into their bag and say, hey, you come at me again and you see what happens. I don't know. Absolutely hysterical is that the father came out and told people, hey, please don't race bait. This isn't political. This is a human issue. This is a human problem. That's what this is.
Right off the start, because I've already heard some rumors and some gossip. This was not a race thing, and this is not a political thing. Please do not comment if you do not know what happened. Do not turn this into a racial thing. It was not. Do not politicize this. It's not. This is a human being thing. This person made a bad choice, and it affected both his family and my family.
Okay, how we are trained. Well, typically, if kids have been raised right, they typically tend not to pull a knife out on somebody when the other person at best has a fist. Typically, when people are raised correctly or conditioned correctly, if they're being approached by a group, they tend to walk away. Lucas, it seems to me like you are telling us flat out that most black parents cannot raise their children, and they raise their children to be a certain way. It seems to me like you're exposing everything wrong with said community. Now, granted, YouTube will get pissed off with me and say that what you're saying is offensive, even though I have already said on multiple occasions in multiple videos that most people, black people especially, I live in the South, I don't know where Lucas lives at, but I'm around mostly black people all the time, raise their kids correctly, not to do such stupid shit. Not to raise their child to pull a knife on somebody unarmed and stab them in the chest. By the way, this kid right here, like I said before, all options are on the table. And given the fact that there was 30-some odd witnesses, he may find himself at the front of the line, not just to go to prison, but, of course, being tried as an adult, he could, in fact, face the death penalty. Texas does have a bit of an expressway on that. It seems to me like you just exposed everything that's wrong here. Not with us, but with you. And of course, the FBI DOJ data obviously backs that up. Links in the description box, also the previous video. Jeremy the Quarter did a very, very good job breaking that down. Matt Walsh, somebody I'm not that big of a fan of, even though me and him agree on 9% of the issues, he also did a very good video on this as well. Several people do great videos on this. You obviously saw two other people, Nate the Lawyer and Sean Fitzgerald, who break this topic down beautifully. But of course, we also got to talk about the topic that is the father. Why does the father not want to make this situation bigger than what it is? Probably because of what I said in the last couple of videos. He just got through. He just survived cancer. Here's the thing about cancer that a lot of people don't seem to understand. A lot of times you don't die of the cancer, you die of the treatment. In some cases, the cancer could be gone and the person dies a couple of months later of a heart attack. You guys ever heard of Roddy Piper, former wrestler? He was also a cancer survivor, died of a heart attack not too long after his cancer went into remission. I had a grandfather die of lung cancer. Oh, wait, that's right. He didn't really die of lung cancer. He had lung cancer, but he died of a heart attack. My father had lung cancer, and he actually died of heart problems. Trust me, I understand the stress he's going through. Chances are, if you're watching this video, chances are you have a relative that went through the same thing. And while I do not agree with the father, and of course I agree that he should be seeking out justice like the mother and the brother won't, I understand where the father is coming from. If Lucas had done his due diligence, he would have actually known this before posting such stupidity. But there is one more part.
And in response to this group of, these white group of racists were livid. They were upset because they saw this as the father being a race traitor. That's how they view it. They see the father as being a race traitor. Oh, he's just trying to shield the blacks. That's what he's trying to do. That's how demented and twisted these people are. That when you have the father of the slain boy saying, please don't race bait, that now they're upset because they can't race bait. It's comedy. And then what's even more comedy is, like I said, the actual story being that it's leaning towards actual self-defense, and the white boys that y'all were screaming and crying about were actually in the wrong.
If somebody was to kill my child, or if I got killed, I'm pretty sure my family would demand justice. And they are, in fact, good, God-fearing people. I believe in God myself, and I do believe in forgiveness. However, I believe that you can still go for justice as well. It's a normal response to respond to somebody like, say, Mr. Metcalf's father, who would kind of like this situation to not go public, not become political. I think it's a pretty reasonable reaction for people to suggest that maybe something is off here, something's a little amiss, because they're probably thinking about, I don't know, the possibility that maybe one of their kids could have been killed. Or maybe this same thing could happen to their kid. They're responding like maybe their own parents would. Maybe they're responding the normal way because it's normal to have feelings. What's not normal, on the other hand, is to not have feelings at all in a situation like this. What's not normal in this situation is to donate heavy amounts of money to the person who actually killed the victim in this case. And no, Lucas, being a victim is not fun. It's not good at all. Of course, that right there is unless maybe you are the victim's father. Last I checked, Jordan Neely, the boy who died on in the subway, remember Daniel Penny basically protected everybody on the subway, the boy Jordan Neely who died. Jordan Neely's father did not even know where his child was, had not known where his child was, and only showed up after his child died. And why in the hell would he do that? Because he knew at that moment in time being a victim was profitable. This is a very, very sick, twisted worldview that these people have developed. I blame the media for it, but then again, though, maybe it's possible that it's also a curse on a said community. I'm not going to go that deep into that, but I think I'll leave this video right here in the description box from the Officer Brand Tatum. Somebody that the amazing Lucas absolutely loves in the description box. That way you guys will see that maybe there is something going on here that might be a little bit on the spiritual side. But I'll let you guys see that for yourself. That I have pretty visceral feeling that justice will probably prevail in this situation. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Please tell me what you think. I'd love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.